Greetings, and welcome back to LA Quill. Today we're venturing into one of the least glamorous, and yet secretly one of the most powerful parts of fantasy writing. Politics. I know. Somewhere a dragon just sighed dramatically because it thought it was going to be the star of today's episode. But here's the truth. Dragons may burn cities, magical swords may defeat ancient evils, and prophecies may send heroes wandering across continents. Yet almost every fantasy story is quietly powered by politics. The trick is making your readers fascinated by these political currents instead of making them feel like they've accidentally enrolled in medieval tax policy 101. Fortunately, there's a way to do exactly that. And today we're going to explore how politics can deepen your fantasy world without burying your readers under a mountain of royal paperwork. When people picture fantasy, they usually imagine the exciting parts first. Towering castles, ancient forests, wizards in suspiciously impractical robes, heroes dramatically staring into sunsets while orchestral music somehow follows them everywhere. Very few readers say, "My favorite part of fantasy is the agricultural trade agreements." Yet politics quietly shapes nearly every one of those exciting moments. Politics is really just the story of power. Who has it? Who wants it? Who's trying desperately not to lose it? Those questions are already sitting at the heart of almost every fantasy novel. The moment two people want different things, and only one of them gets to decide what happens, congratulations, you've wandered into politics, whether you plan to or not. One mistake writers sometimes make is assuming that politics only belong in enormous epic fantasies with several hundred named nobles, 12 kingdoms, and family trees that require their own appendix. That's certainly one way to do it, but politics can exist on every scale imaginable. Imagine a tiny village where only one person is allowed to practice healing magic. Who decided that? What happens if someone else starts learning? Maybe there's a village council. Maybe the local priest objects. Maybe the neighboring town has completely different rules. Suddenly, you've introduced politics without ever showing a king sitting on a throne. Politics doesn't require an empire. It only requires people making decisions that affect other people. One of my favorite ways to think about political systems is to stop asking, "What government do I want?" and instead start asking, who actually gets to say yes or no? Every society has someone making decisions. Maybe it's a monarch whose word is law. Maybe it's a council that debates endlessly while everyone else grows old waiting for a conclusion. Maybe the merchants have so much wealth they effectively control the government. Maybe the temples hold the real authority while the king simply smiles politely during ceremonies and signs whatever the high priest places in front of him. Those answers don't just define your government, they define your world. Different political systems naturally create different kinds of stories. Monarchies tend to invite questions about succession, inheritance, loyalty, and rebellion. Republics and councils often generate stories filled with debate, compromise, and competing interests. Theocracies place faith and authority together, creating fascinating tension wherever religious beliefs collide with personal freedom. Empires naturally create stories about expansion, resistance, and cultural conflict. Then there are guilds, magical colleges, merchant alliances, and every other organization that can quietly become more influential than the official government. Sometimes the person wearing the crown is the least powerful individual in the room, and that can be far more interesting than another all-powerful king. Of course, political systems are only interesting because people live inside them. Readers rarely fall in love with constitutions and tax documents. They fall in love with characters whose lives are shaped by those systems. Imagine a hero determined to slay the dragon terrorizing the countryside. Wonderful. Classic fantasy. Now imagine the king refuses permission because the dragon's mountain technically lies inside disputed territory. Sending soldiers might trigger a war with a neighboring kingdom. Suddenly our brave dragon slayer has discovered that monsters aren't always the biggest obstacle. Sometimes bureaucracy breathes fire too. Political intrigue also gives your characters opportunities to solve problems without swinging swords every 5 minutes. Fantasy often celebrates combat, but conversations can be every bit as dangerous. A carefully placed rumor can destroy reputations. A marriage proposal can prevent a war. A poorly timed insult can start one. A noble may betray an ally not because they're secretly evil, but because supporting the hero would bankrupt their lands or leave their own people vulnerable. Those kinds of choices feel believable because everyone involved has understandable motivations. Good political conflict isn't built from villains twirling imaginary mustaches. It's built from reasonable people pursuing goals that simply cannot all exist together. Now let's address one of the greatest dangers lurking in fantasy: the exposition avalanche. You know the one. Chapter 1 begins, and before anyone has even eaten breakfast, we are introduced to 14 noble houses, 6 religious orders, 3 ancient treaties, 2 trade agreements, and someone's third cousin who has hereditary fishing rights over the eastern marshes. Meanwhile, the reader quietly closes the book and goes to make some tea. Political world building becomes interesting when readers experience it rather than study it. Instead of explaining a restrictive law, let your protagonists suffer because of it. Instead of describing an alliance, show 2 supposed allies glaring at one another across the council chamber while politely complimenting each other's hats. Point of view can become one of your greatest allies here. Your readers only need to know what the viewpoint character reasonably understands. A farmer probably isn't tracking every diplomatic negotiation taking place hundreds of miles away. A royal advisor probably doesn't know what ordinary villagers whisper around the tavern fireplace. By limiting information naturally through perspective, your political world unfolds gradually instead of arriving all at once like an encyclopedia wearing armor. Readers enjoy discovering worlds. They generally don't enjoy memorizing them before chapter 2. History, fortunately, has already done much of the heavy lifting for us. Human civilization has produced enough alliances, revolutions, and spectacular political disasters to keep fantasy writers inspired for centuries. The wonderful part isn't copying history directly. It's observing patterns. Ambitious leaders rise. Powerful institutions compete. Economic interests influence moral decisions. Religious movements reshape governments. Old traditions resist change while younger generations challenge them. Those patterns appear again and again throughout history because they're deeply human. When we borrow those underlying ideas rather than specific events, our fantasy worlds begin feeling grounded, even when populated by dragons, elves, and people capable of setting mountains on fire. Magic makes all of this even more entertaining because it changes the balance of power. Every fantasy world eventually has to answer a deceptively simple question: who controls magic? If only nobles receive magical education, magic becomes another symbol of privilege. If everyone can learn it, governments might struggle to regulate it. Perhaps rulers depend entirely upon court mages, while secretly fearing they could seize power whenever they please. Maybe religious authorities condemn magic publicly, while privately consulting sorcerers every Tuesday afternoon. Hypocrisy has always been surprisingly consistent throughout history, and fantasy gives us wonderful new ways to explore it. Whenever politics and magics intersect, stories become wonderfully unpredictable. Imagine a kingdom where the most powerful wizard refuses to support the crown. Imagine a republic where magical voting crystals reveal every lie spoken during debates. Imagine a guild controlling enchanted transportation across an entire continent. Suddenly, economics, diplomacy, warfare, and everyday life all revolve around magical resources. Those aren't just interesting magical systems. They're political systems disguised as magical ones. The beauty is that readers don't need lengthy explanations. They simply need to see how these realities shape the lives of the characters they care about. Perhaps the most important advice I can offer is this: never forget that politics exists to serve your story, not replace it. Readers don't keep turning pages because they desperately need to know subsection 14 of the Royal Charter of Administrative Procedures. They keep reading because someone they care about is trying to survive, protect someone they love, uncover a conspiracy, or prevent a disaster. Politics should create obstacles and opportunities and difficult choices and unexpected consequences. If removing a political subplot won't affect your characters or your plot, it may simply be decorative wallpaper wearing an expensive crown. Good political intrigue also thrives on uncertainty. Alliances change and promises break. People surprise us. Someone who appears to be an enemy today may become tomorrow's greatest ally. Someone who appears to be an enemy today may become tomorrow's greatest ally, while yesterday's trusted companion quietly pursues their own agenda. Those shifting loyalties create wonderful tension because readers can never become completely comfortable. Just remember that surprises should naturally grow from believable motivations. Characters shouldn't betray each other because the author wanted a shocking twist. They should betray each other because, from their perspective, it genuinely seemed like the best, or perhaps the only, choice available at the time. At the end of the day, fantasy has always been about more than magical creatures and impossible adventures. It's about people making impossible decisions in extraordinary worlds. Politics simply gives these decisions greater weight. It reminds us that heroes don't exist in isolation. Every victory echoes through kingdoms. Every defeat changes lives. Every choice reshapes the future in ways both grand and deeply personal. When you weave political intrigue into your fantasy thoughtfully, readers won't feel like they're studying government. They'll feel like they're witnessing a living world where every action matters, every alliance carries consequences, and every throne casts a very long shadow. And that's our tale from L.A. Quill today. I'd love to hear about the political systems you've created, or your favorite examples of political intrigue in fantasy. So leave a comment and let's swap stories. Until next time, may your stories always be magical.